our next guest, a backup at Northern Iowa for 3 years before breaking into the starting lineup and leading the Panthers to an 8-4 record. Started for one season, signed by the Packers, where he was widely considered the fourth best quarterback on the team. He then joined the Iowa Barnstormers of the Arena Football League and the Amsterdam Admirals. Looks like there's a lot more stuff here, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this introduction. Please welcome Kurt Warner. You can see Kurt throughout the NFL Network's Super Bowl coverage from Atlanta, Super Bowl Sunday. See him on a special 8.5-hour edition of NFL Game Day Morning, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern on the NFL Network. Also a Hall of Famer. What is tougher?
I like that.
8.5.
Give me that whole introduction. Also a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Well,
that's all you get with that. Okay.
Yeah. What's tougher, playing in a Super Bowl or doing an 8.5-hour pregame show?
Yeah, probably the 8.5-hour pregame show. Trying to keep the energy up for that long. But same kind of thing when you're preparing for a Super Bowl is, you wake up that day and it's so, you've been waiting for the game for so long, but then you have to wait all day long. And I used to hate playing night games. I wanted to wake up, go to the stadium and play football. And so that's the hardest part, is managing your emotions, because it's the biggest game of your life.
But what do you do all day?
Yeah.
Meetings, watch film?
What I did is I would wake up and eat breakfast, and I would try to go back to sleep. So I would try to treat it like I was getting up and going to the stadium, and it was a noon game. So I would try to take a nap. But, that sounds really good. But you got the biggest game of your life, and everything's going through your mind. You've been preparing for this. So sometimes I was able to sleep a little bit. Sometimes I wasn't. But, yeah, you're really simply just trying to manage it. And I tried to get away from football. We spent so much time preparing that I didn't need to look over it anymore. All that did was make you more nervous, more anxious for the game. So I tried to get away from it. But like I said, every time you turn on the TV, they're talking about it. Everybody's texting you, talking about the game. So it's nearly impossible to get away from it. But that was what I tried to do anyways.
Do you remember anything about the pregame speeches prior to the Super Bowl?
No. The only one I remember is my first Super Bowl. Right before we ran out of the tunnel, it was Dick Vermeil, myself, Isaac, and Marshall. And Dick just kind of talking to us about, that group and what we meant and the moment that we had. I don't remember any of the big speeches. Don't remember what anybody said at that point. I get so focused. That's one of the things that my family always jokes about. Like when I'm texting something to someone, I can't hear anything my kids say. My kids will be like, Dad, Dad, Dad. And I get so focused on what I'm doing. And I was the same way with football, is that I just kind of got into my own little world, and I didn't hear anything or listen to anything. I was focused on what I was doing. It was the same before the game, but that moment was kind of special because, of bringing in Marshall at that time and Isaac kind of being the old statesman that had been with the team when they were in L.A., and then obviously Dick and myself. So it was just a special moment right as we were getting ready to run out of the tunnel, but I don't remember anything else.
At what point did you realize what Belichick's game plan was against you guys in taking Marshall Faulk out of the offense?
Well, it wasn't just Marshall, but I think we realized very early that their approach was going to be, we're going to beat these guys up. We're going to grab them and hold them and be physical with them, because our offense was all about timing, all about ball out before guys are breaking and all of that stuff. So I truly believe they went into this and said, the officials don't like to call a lot of penalties. They don't.
Well, they were doing what Seattle did in the Legion of Boom. They were manhandling you guys at the line of scrimmage.
Exactly.
Saying, you're not going to throw. How many pass interference flags are you going to throw?
Right, especially early in the
Super
game.
Bowl, yeah.
And that's what happened. Is early in the game they just threw us off because they were so physical. In the second half, they started to call some of those penalties. Things loosened up. We were able to get back into the game and tie it late in the game. But I look back and I go, what a genius approach. To go, let's force them to call penalties. We know they don't want to slow this game down and have a bunch, the officials, dictating what the game is. So let's do it until they force us not to do it, because it's really who we were. And so I tip my hat to them with that game plan. And then, as you said, the other nugget that they had was they put two linebackers on the edge of the line of scrimmage. And every time Marshall released from the backfield in one of their directions, grab him, hit him, don't let him get going out of the backfield. And so, but that was the beginning of what you came to realize is Bill Belichick and his ability to design things. The ironic thing, we played him earlier that year, during the season. And during that game, they went with 7 DBs, and they were giving us all these crazy looks. And so you prepare for that, and then we go into the Super Bowl, and we didn't see any of that stuff. It was completely different. But that's who Bill Belichick is you don't have no idea what they did last week, 2 weeks ago, what they did to you earlier in the year. Even if they beat you, doesn't mean they're going to do the same thing. So you've got to be ready to adjust to whatever you see on Super Bowl Sunday.
Did you have any idea that you're watching a potential Hall of Famer in Tom Brady at that point?
Absolutely not. I mean, he did win the Super Bowl MVP in that game, but I believe he threw for like 150 yards or less than 150 yards. The only thing I'll say is what Tom Brady has, he's great in so many different ways, but what makes him so special is how good he is in the moment. When they need that one drive. We see it time and time again. We saw it against Kansas City a couple weeks ago. And if there was one thing that you can look back and go, maybe that was a little glimpse. We tied the game with 2 minutes to go. And he made a couple big throws, a couple great decisions.
Well, John Madden famously said, you're not going to try to win it with Brady. You're going to go into overtime. And next thing you know, he connects on a couple of passes. Vinatieri kicks.
And we thought the same thing, because we had taken the momentum of the game and we thought, well, they're not going to come out here and throw it because of incomplete passes or whatever happens. We get the ball back. We're going to win this football game.
Yeah.
And if you go back and look at that Super Bowl, the very first pass they threw, Leonard Little, was about 2 inches from knocking the ball away from Tom Brady, and he steps up and eludes that and drops one off. But that was maybe the one thing that you saw when you look back and go, he was pretty good in that moment. He was pretty good at making those plays in that 2-minute drive. And you look back now, 8 Super Bowls, every one has been dictated by one score. Every game that he's played in has come down to a one-possession game, and obviously he's won a bunch of them, and it's because he's so good in that moment.
Hall of Famer Kurt Warner joining us here in the Man Cave in Atlanta. If you would give Jared Goff advice, if he would ask for advice, what would you tell him about facing Belichick?
I think the one thing I would tell him is that you have to realize this game is like every other game when you get between the lines. There's ebbs and flows of every game. I look back at my 3 Super Bowls. The first one, we were ahead 16-0. It was tied 16-16 in the fourth quarter. Just talked about the one in 2001. We were down 17-3, tied up at 17-17 with 2 minutes to go. And then, the one against Pittsburgh later, we were down 10 at halftime, took the lead with 2.5 minutes to go in the game. So every game, even big games like this with high stakes, they have their ebbs and flows. Momentum shifts very quickly, and that's what I would tell him is you got to ride the waves of the Super Bowl. No matter which way it goes, you might jump up early. You got to be able to sustain that. You might fall down early, similar to what they did in New Orleans. You've got to ride that wave, even though it's the biggest game of your life, even though Tom Brady's on the other sideline and there's a lot of pressure in that moment. You've got to allow the game to come to you. And the guys that don't do that are the ones that get blown out in Super Bowls. The guys that do that are the guys that have a chance to win late in games, and that would be the one piece of advice I'd give him.
And, of course, you had the great finish here in Atlanta. How nervous – because quarterbacks want the ball with the game on the line.
Yeah.
You had to watch. You had to watch as, Dyson nearly scores the touchdown. Mike Jones makes the tackle. What's it like on the sidelines when you have no control?
Yeah, it's the worst thing in the world. It's the worst thing in the world, but I tell you, when it works out in your favor – it's one of the best things in the world because we have the ultimate team sport. Basketball, yeah, it's a team game, but you can play on both ends of the court. Baseball, you can hit and field, And so the hardest thing about football is you only get to play one way outside of obviously those rare exceptions. And so it becomes the ultimate team game is you have to do your part and then you have to believe and expect your teammates to do their part. And it's the hardest thing is that I left all 3 of my Super Bowls either tied or with the lead with less than 3 minutes to go. And I'm 1-2 in Super Bowls. But to have a defense or Mike Jones make the tackle and the defense come up with a stop, it ultimately brings you together to the point where you go, it takes a team to win Super Bowls. I mean, Tom Brady would tell you the same thing, is that he could be 9-0, or he could be 8-0, he could be 0-8, because every game has come down to that one possession, and it takes both sides. So as hard as it was to sit back and watch and know I've got no hand in this, what happens from this point, I've got to sit and watch. The beauty of that Super Bowl was that I knew that worst case scenario, we were going to be tied. Worst, they weren't going to go for two. If they did score, we would get another opportunity in overtime. But yeah, it's the most helpless feeling. But in the end, it's cool because you get to share that and know everybody had a hand in winning that game.
If I gave you a mulligan on the Pittsburgh loss or the New England loss?
New England, without question.
Why?
Because we didn't play our best game. And I think the bottom line, when you play in this moment, I don't mind the Pittsburgh game was just a great game. Great players making great plays when they needed to. We did everything, with 2.5 minutes to go. I always say this. For the first time in the history of our sport, people said the Cardinals are going to be Super Bowl champs.
Yeah.
And so we were in a place where we played well enough to win that Super Bowl. Against New England, we didn't play our best game. Credit New England. They played well. They did what they had to do. But we didn't play. I mean, we had 450 yards of offense and scored 17 points. Yeah. That is not the greatest show on. That was not who we were. And so that game I think about more than any other, because you want in your biggest moment to play your best football, and we didn't do it on that day.
And, there's so many moments that, that can change the outcome of the game. I had the fortune, I was handing out the Super Bowl trophy in the Arizona-Pittsburgh Super Bowl. So I'm on the sidelines, and I'm with Steve Young. So I'm standing next to Steve Young as Ben gets the ball for the 2-minute drive.
Right.
Steve Young is doing play-by-play to me about what Ben is doing.
Okay.
And he is so excited. He's just saying, this is unbelievable. Like he's saying, you know what, this is what I would do. And then Ben would be doing it. And then it was just playing out in real time, because I thought you guys were going to win the Super Bowl. So I'm thinking, okay, Warner's going to be up there. Larry Fitzgerald's up there. Mr. Bidwell. Like, I'm thinking who's up on the podium.
Who you gotta talk to, sure.
All of a sudden, Ben's here. He escapes here, he's over here. Misses Santonio Holmes in the end zone.
On the play before?
Yes.
Yeah, wide open.
And then all of a sudden, he connects. And Steve Young's going crazy because a quarterback watching a quarterback in that moment, which we all did in the backyard,
right. And
he said, you don't realize how great that was. Like, in my mind, I'm going, okay, I got Mr. Rooney. I got, Coach will be up there. I got, who's the MVP? Holmes will be up there. I got Roth. So I'm not even going, well, that was unbelievable.
Right.
In my mind, I'm going, I got to get up on the podium and interview these people in front of 100 million people. And it just, it unfolds like that so quickly. And then I thought Ben was going to be the MVP for that drive right there. Mm-hmm. But then I thought you were going to be the MVP, or it'd be Larry was going to be the MVP. And it was just, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was just,
but that to me is what it's all about. Is, I look back on my career and, the Super Bowls and again, won 1, lost 2. But I played in 3 of the greatest Super Bowls that have ever been played. Yeah. Super Bowls that came down to the last minute, you could say to the last play. And that to me is what it's all about. 2 best teams, great players, making plays when they need to make plays. And that's what I reflect on, is that I got to see the start and at my expense, but I got to see the start of this Brady, Belichick, Patriots dynasty that I don't think we're ever going to see again. So maybe it's not as painful now to go, oh, we lost to that team, that's been to 9 Super Bowls. And then, the Pittsburgh one, like I said, it was great plays. I mean, that catch by Santonio Holmes, that throw by Ben Roethlisberger, you just don't see that very often. So you just have to tip your hat and go, and that's what it's all about. And we didn't have the ball last, and they made the plays they needed to. So from that perspective, you step back and go, man, I'm so grateful of the games that I got to play in on this stage.
I can feel some frustration still there. Would you like to take out some frustration? I got McLovin. McLovin, do you want to catch some passes from Kurt Warner?
Which Kurt Warner? Am I getting Rams Kurt Warner or Giants
You're
Kurt
kidding
Warner?
the 47-year-old. Old.
Wow.
Kurt Warner. So,
Because if it's Giants Kurt Warner, I mean, I'm not afraid.
well, if it's the Giants Kurt Warner, then I can't even throw the football because we didn't even throw the football then. It was handoff left, hand
Any
off right,
other thoughts for Kurt Warner?
Well, maybe if it's the Giants one, he could throw the first couple. Then I think Eli's in the green room. He could come in.
I love it. I love it.
You got a little sauce left in that arm?
I might have a little left.
Okay. All right. We'll take a break. McLovin, do you have your receiver gloves?
What? He gets gloves?
Well,
that's like cheating.
Wait. You had a glove.
That's true, but I don't have it today.
I can get you one if you need one.
It's just like cheating with those things.
It is. That's performance enhancing.
Oh, my gosh. Without a doubt.
Right?
Without a doubt. You see these guys. I mean, they're catching it with 2 fingers now.
I know.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's
What
not
are you
fair.
complaining about? You threw 40 touchdowns a year to guys wearing gloves.
Well, yeah, I'm just complaining because you're wearing them.
Kurt Warner, NFL Network analyst, Hall of Famer, Super Bowl MVP, and you can see him 8.5-hour edition of NFL Game Day Morning. I think it starts when you leave here.
That's because these guys won it. If these guys didn't want 8.5 hours, I wouldn't have to get up so early.
9 a.m. Eastern on the NFL Network. We'll come back. If you're watching, you can see Kurt Warner's Smoke McLovin right after this.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, so McLovin takes on usually quarterbacks who are playing now.
Yeah.
So since you've retired, this shouldn't be that
wanna
big of
move
a
it
deal.
closer?
No,
Since
you
I've
should
retired?
move back.
Well,
No,
you know,
you can move. Now you can throw it that far.
I mean, I could throw it that far.
Okay, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
this is like it's like an arena stadium right here. It kind of
It's like the Arena League.
Barnstormer days.
Okay, so
bounce off the
just,
walls.
why don't
Okay.
you just give it just a little moderate heat there to McLovin?
Moderate heat.
Yeah, let's just see what we got.
Why are you moving? Why are you moving?
That's not a
Out of the
hand
way.
scratch, Kurt. Why am I moving?
So that's just moderate speed. Now you can just amp it up a little bit.
You move before the ball even gets there. You got no
Well, you
chance.
got your gloves and your helmet on.
Can you hit him in the head?
Yeah, would it be? Can you throw to me as I crouch behind that truck? Is that possible?
You're the one that was making fun of him.
This is it.
Now we're going?
All right.
Wait. What do you mean that wasn't going? The last one
No,
wasn't
now we're
going?
going. Now we're going. Ready?
Okay.
He's a smart man.
I thought he was supposed to at least try to catch it. I mean, is the goal just to get out of the way? I mean,
Andrew.
I thought we were
catch it?
trying to catch it here.
How would that play in the huddle?
All right.
He did that.
I mean, yeah, that wouldn't play real well. That wouldn't-
All right, give me one more.
One more?
Fitzgerald never did that, did he?
No.
He never
He never
ducked
did
down.
Look at his face. Look at his nervousness.
Oh, one more. Now I'm not afraid.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.